Welcome to The Practical Intuitive, where host Robyn Fritz explores mind, body, and spirit for the real world. Robyn is an intuitive, spiritual consultant and past life regression specialist based in Seattle, Washington. As the Practical Intuitive, she explores life on our conscious, evolving planet, our Mother. It's all here, from how the world really works to intuition, the human-animal bond, mediumship, clearing space with space cooperating, and spirituality. It's Robyn Fritz, the Practical Intuitive, helping you master body, mind, and spirit for the real world. No ifs, ands, buts, or BS ever.
Welcome to the Practical Intuitive, mind, body, spirit for the real world. I'm Robyn Fritz, and we're it's Monday, December 5th, 2022, and we're live on a gray, cool day in Seattle, Washington. I'm an intuitive and spiritual consultant and past life regression specialist, and I live on the salty Puget Sound, near the salty Puget Sound, with my reincarnated animal family, Oliver, Alkai, a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, and Karis, a Russian blue cat. And every time I introduce myself that way, I think how grateful I am to have a wonderful family that I have. And I hope that you have a great family too. And, today's subject is talking about clearing our spaces and what that really means. And what it really means, first off, is that our spaces are our family as well, whether they're our workspaces or our business spaces. It's past time for us to start thinking about our spaces as what they really are, as fellow beings on this planet, and how that works in our real lives, everyday lives. So we're going to talk about that today. And like all of our shows, since I restarted my show this year, are reflecting back on our proper and real roles of being equals with all life on the planet and all life in service of our Mother, our conscious, living, evolving planet. And it's a concept that I call planetary connection, but it was taught to me as a reminder of what I knew as a child and how I never really fit in with the human world around me because I could see so much more. And the world gets so busy for us humans that we don't always stop to think about the world around us. And I had a lot of time as a young child to spend time in nature. And so I know that everything around us is alive. So that concept, that earth paradigm, as you will, of being in harmony with all life, that everything around us has a soul, is conscious, is sentient, has a job to do, a responsibility to choose, free choice, and opinions. But we often fail to think about our spaces around us, our homes and our businesses, as alive. And then because they're alive like we're alive, they need to keep their energies clear. They need to have healthy, balanced lives. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, kind of the overall concept of that, as well as sharing some stories to give you an idea of what our spaces are needing, could need, and how we can deal with them. So one of the things I do is, and one of my favorite things is I help people clear their spaces as a professional clearing expert. And what puzzles me is that I'm the only one out there clearing space like I'm doing it. And to me, it seems obvious because, again, of that childhood connection to the land around me. And I told a story earlier in the season of my new show that I grew up feeling very comfortable in an old growth forest all by myself out in the deep forest. Not so comfortable with humans, and only because that was the many lifetimes before that coming up. So we want to start the show with connecting to Fallon, my crystal partner. He's a citrine Lemurian quartz, and I want you to tap into that in the way your intuition works most strongly, and hang on to that connection to that energy because he's present during the show for you. And learning to tap your intuition is really important for you to learning to connect with your spaces. Easier with animals because we can see them responding to us, but not so easy with our spaces unless we let our intuition lead us. So if you hear things, you see things, you have feelings, or you just know, those are main ways that your intuition works to give you information and to help you be the best that you can be in this lifetime. So take a deep breath and imagine you're connecting to Fallon, that energy. And it often presents himself as a gold light, although you may see a gold man. He is a masculine energy. And just imagine that going into your heart, and with each beat of your heart, flooding your body with healthy energy. Just imagine that connection and feel it. I know that it is real. Fallon is an ancient power crystal, and he's back in the world. Unfortunately, in the shape of a crystal ball. And I say unfortunately because to make a crystal ball, an 8-pound crystal ball, they take a giant piece of crystal and whittle it away. So let me tell you a story about clearing space, and then think about that as we go through this story and go through what I want to cover today is the methodology I use, or the modality that I call space cooperating, in tune with this paradigm of all things being equal in the world, and therefore involving the spaces in the clearing. Comparing that to modalities that people use that really don't work completely. And, going into some of the philosophy behind it as well as just how it works and what you can do for your spaces. So some years ago, I was helping a client clear her farm, and she had some stuck energy there, and she wanted some help, and she was really brilliant and intuitive on her own. Sometimes people, just want the professional to come in. That's the objective outsider, and, can dig through the issues without the emotions that are attached in our everyday lives with our spaces. So as we walked through her farm, way out in the rural areas in Washington State, but I noticed there was something really stuck, but I hadn't been able to find it yet. We went through room by room, and we went through outside, and there was an instance where she had been using one of the smaller bedrooms for her bedroom and leaving this really huge, beautiful space empty. And I said, well, why aren't you using this space for your main bedroom? And she says, oh, I keep that for guests. And I'm like, are you shortchanging yourself? And the space, this is clearly a master bedroom. How would you feel if you gave yourself permission to be in this space? And how do you think the space feels? And her face lit up. It was just wonderful to see her go, oh, I've been thinking I wasn't good enough for the space. And so think about that as you work with your spaces. Do you feel inadequate, and why? And is that a social thing, especially for women, as opposed to what's going on in the space, and think that through. Well, what the point of this story is that we were down in the basement, and there's a dirt floor basement, and she had set up some areas to work down there, and it was really cool. It's a very old home, and I started to realize that the biggest stuck feeling that I felt was coming from the basement, and I turned, and there was a curtained off area. And so I walked over to there, and I pulled the curtain back, and I was having trouble making out what I was looking at. It was kind of dark. There was just a small window, but it was this big, old, heavy furnace, and it clearly not been used in a long time, and it was all blackened. And I'm like, wow, what is this? And the furnace itself was grieving. I mean, just sending off waves of grief. Now imagine how your intuition works. I could feel this grief, and I could feel this guilt coming from the furnace. So those are feelings. And I turned to my client and I said, what's with this furnace? It's old and it looks like it's been burned up somehow. And she said, yes, it hadn't been used in many years. It had caught fire at one point and almost burned the house down. And the furnace just started weeping. I mean, you could hear this grief. And I said, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. I couldn't save myself. I almost burned the house down. I'm a terrible I'm like, whoa, hold on. You're not a terrible furnace. Well, the problem was the furnace was feeling guilty because it caught fire and it had died during the fire, but its soul remained trapped within the furnace. And I turned to my client and I said, you need to tell it it's okay for it to go and it's forgiven. And she did. She said it was forgiven, and we invited its spiritual team to come and help it. And at the moment that she said she forgave it and it was okay to go, literally the ground beneath us just did this thump. And we both looked at each other like, oh my God, are we in the middle of a big earthquake suddenly? That was it, just one thump. And then we realized, oh my gosh, that was the soul leaving the furnace and moving on. And the minute that happened, the energy abruptly cleared. So the question for you as you're looking at clearing your spaces, whether it's a home or business space, is find out what's going on in that space. What do you know about your space? And that's the whole point of the modality that I use, that I call space cooperating. It's finding out what is going on in that space, finding out what the space itself needs and wants, sharing with it what the humans need and want in that space, and then going through the process of clearing. Without doing that, you'll never know that a furnace has a trapped soul, and that trapped soul is leading to stuck energy, and no one feels comfortable in a house that is really well loved. And you may not be as easy at work if you don't understand what the workspace needs and wants. And I'll tell more stories as we get into this today, but think about how you would go about using your intuition in the way it works most strongly for you, hearing, seeing, feeling, or knowing, and finding out what your home space needs and wants, and in particular, your home space. Because our homes, the souls that go into our homes and that live those lives as homes, their job is to nurture and protect us, and they are extremely protective of their people. So it's hard for them to let go of the current people they have. If there's a sale, a real estate sale involved, it's they want to nurture and support and take care of people. And they have their ideas about the people that they want in their homes. And I have lots of stories in my book on space cooperating, which I'm going to get around to publishing this next winter. But the point is that you may not know what's actually going on in your space, and it pays to sit down and literally find out what it is. And that's the difference between what I call space cooperating and what other people do in a space clearing session. That's why I don't even use the word space clearing. They conjure a whole modality that I don't feel works, because I have to go in and clean up after modalities like that, and I'll talk about that more in a bit. But I also want to emphasize that I'm here on this show and really dedicated in my work as an intuitive and spiritual consultant and past life regression specialist, of helping people and their spaces and their animals, all of them to connect and to be the best that they can be. And I take very seriously my job of serving the planet, and encourage each of you to know that it is also your job to serve the planet, that we are all ambassadors to our mother, and all need to take seriously that responsibility of stepping up to the plate and of joining that table of life, as you will, of all beings, animals, trees, homes, businesses, cars, roads, volcanoes, rivers, ocean, all there working as one united whole to make the planet, help the planet be as healthy as she can be, and also to honor her. And in that process, really leading to an overall clearing and support that nourishes all of us. Imagine, if you will, a planet that, as I look at it, I can see huge block of energy on the entire planet. And, how do we go about helping that energy to move, that stuck energy keep moving, and by creating this healthy relationship with our spaces. So again, as I say in every show, I don't have all the answers to everything. I don't even have all the questions. I have some of them, and I know where to start, and that's with our beloved planet. So if we've got a minute here to the commercial break. So people have been clearing their spaces for centuries. It's something that people in so-called Western civilization forgot over time, and for good reason, because their intuitives ended up being called witches and got persecuted for trying to create healthy relationships between humans and others. And that didn't happen in other parts of the world. So we remember those. A lot of us remember those times, and we need to clear ourselves for those times so that we can be who we are right now in our bodies. So hang on, we're going to talk about what clearing our spaces means and how that works on a intellectual level, and then how we can bring that down into our soul level. So hang on, we'll be right back after the break.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This segment of The Practical Intuitive is brought to you by Andrea Bovey, licensed insurance agent at boveyinsurance.com. Andrea specializes in affordable health insurance. Yes, affordable health insurance exists. It's called a defined benefit plan, and it's a budget concept. That means you'll be able to see any doctor, access outpatient services, receive covered preventative services such as mammograms and colonoscopies, enjoy unlimited free virtual doctor visits, and be covered for urgent care, ER, and hospital visits. There's more. During a free consultation, insurance agent Andrea Bovey can help you decide if you should add critical illness or accident coverage, so all your risks are covered when something serious occurs. All this while still delivering savings. Yes, the premiums can be much lower than those in marketplace plans. Ready to check it out? Go to boveyinsurance.com to book a free consultation with insurance agent Andrea Bovey. Andrea is based in Arizona, but she works by phone and webinar so she can help you wherever you are. Andrea works with her clients to find the best healthcare products at the best prices. Ready to learn more? Contact Andrea Bovey at boveyinsurance.com. That's BOVEY insurance.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn, Fritz, and we're talking about the importance of clearing our spaces and doing it in a way that honors both humans and the space and all life in it. Our plants, our animals, and our chairs, and our beds, and our cars, and everything. So let's be real. And the reality is we all have to make a living. We all have to get along the best that we can in the world. We all have people to take care of, even if it's just ourselves, in our home, our animals, whatever. Why bother to clear our space? Well, we all want and need an edge in our fast-paced, high-stress world. We want to feel refreshed and invigorated at home and at work. We want to be comfortable and focused and content and inspired, and to get that edge, to create healthy, balanced, prosperous lives. We have to tend to our mind, body, spirit needs, absolutely, but also to the same needs of the spaces that we live and work in. So for us to be great, our spaces have to be great too, because we need a firm foundation to build on, that firm support, that ground beneath our feet to be healthy and balanced. If we don't, we're going to have a lot of wasted time and energy trying to stay balanced, trying to not fall down, basically. It's true that our mindset matters, our attitude matters, but we need to start thinking of a priority, and that priority is the space around us. Whether it's a cubicle at work, whether you own the whole building, whether it's a condo that I live in, apartment, a home, a separate home, a modest apartment, or a huge mansion. If your space is bogged down, you're going to be bogged down. Okay, so you think, well, okay, yeah, maybe you know all about why we need to clear our space, but a lot of people will go, oh, that's just too metaphysical for me. But stop and think about your day. So if you walk into a business, okay, so assuming you can walk into a business in this age of pandemics, more and more people are going back into businesses, shopping, whatever. But say you walk in and it feels closed in, dank, uninviting. Place could be physically dirty, smelly, junky, or it could be sparkling clean. But you're looking around and you just don't feel interested, and you notice that the employees may seem tired or act like they're just going through the motions, and you go, this place just doesn't feel good to me. Now, I know you've experienced that at least once in your life. Or you're heading home after a hard day at work, and you walk in the door, and home that's supposed to be good feels like a dirty word. You're just tired and cranky and uncomfortable. So what? What's going on? Well, the business and the home space are stuck. The energy can't move freely. And these spaces need help. They need to not have us tell them what to do, but offer the help that you would offer another person if they looked like they needed something. And if they don't get help, they're going to be in some version of stuck. But now let's turn around and look at it again. So say you go into a place and you're like, wow, this feels great, right? It's fresh, open, and inviting. The employees are happy and motivated. Everything is just great. And at home, you feel happy and healthy and settled. And you may have had a tough day. And for sure, Pollyanna is a fairy tale. But for the most part, home is what you want and need. It's sanctuary, right? Those spaces have energy that's freely flowing, and those spaces are clear, right? So think about that when you go about your daily life. So you walk into a space, right? Your home space, your garage, the neighborhood, a grocery store, whatever, little bits and pieces of your energy fly off and get in that space. And so as you're walking through it, little bits and pieces of everybody else that was in that space, some of those attached to you, as well as the feelings and emotions of the space itself. So if you think, well, my space is clear, I keep my space clear, good luck, I'm glad. But every day you're walking through spaces that aren't necessarily clear, and you're bringing some of that icky stuff home with you, right? So you've got to stop and take a look at how you can routinely keep your space clear. So, wow, that's a lot, right? So the good news is that everything changes when we stop and look around the world as an evolving place, that it changes, that energy changes, it gets stuck, it moves freely, you can see it all around you. And so what do you do about it? How do you keep it clear? Well, you keep moving through that process of clearing your space. Now, you can do it on your own, and I encourage everyone to do that. And two words, one idea: sea salt. I tell all my clients the biggest thing that they can do is put salt around their place, their home, their workplace, in their car, whatever, because salt is a traditional, it's been used forever, as people understand that salt has this property of helping to clear energy. So sure, you can use incense or you can do whatever, but the biggest thing is that sea salt will work for you. Incense make you feel better and make you in the space wake up and pay attention, but it's not necessary. The only thing that's really necessary is sea salt and your desire to support the space around you and yourself as well. Because when you're clearing your space, you're clearing yourself too, right? So that sea salt works for both of you. So there are ways of clearing our spaces that help to a certain extent, but not completely. So that's why I created my modality that I call space cooperating, because I could see that what other people were using wasn't working as well as it could. And one of the times that I noticed that when I was in the home of someone who did space clearing for a business. And, you can all go through and you can force energy to change. I mean, you can. And that's sometimes the concept behind energy healing. You have to be careful about that, is that, yeah, you can go around and you can force the energy to change. You can force a space to clear itself, but you're enforcing your opinion on the space or your needs on the space. And what I noticed in the home of this person was that I had a tough time breathing clearly. And it's like, I couldn't figure out what the deal was, because I knew she could work with energy and I knew she could clear a space. But what I finally realized, and I talked with the space, like, what's going on with you? Like, why do you feel so dense and heavy? Well, what had happened was, in her well-intentioned idea of creating this space that she felt comfortable in, she was creating this blanket over the space, and it just smothered everything. But that's where she felt comfortable. And she's out and about every day clearing space for other people. She just wanted to come home to silence. And that silence got interpreted into density, and a density of just, like I said, like a heavy blanket thrown over the space. Well, it wasn't serving the space. And eventually she had to leave that space because the two of them weren't compatible. And after I thought about it for a while and then spent some time in other spaces, that's how I learned to find out what the space itself needs and wants. So if you're going to use the modality that I use, that I encourage everybody to use, is space cooperating. It means a couple things. I'm going to explain that, then I'm going to explain why certain methodologies don't work. So space cooperating is a concept that, in line with our role as ambassadors to our mother, as equals with all life on the planet, recognizes that concept of the Earth paradigm or planetary connection. It recognizes that everything is alive and has a soul, has consciousness, is sentient. It has a job to do and a responsibility to choose to do it or not, and opinions. So when we go into a space, here's what I do. I tell the people to give me a list of what they need and want from that space. It could be they're remodeling, it could be they're getting ready to sell, or they're buying a new space and they want to clear out stuck energies. I've had people say, oh, somebody died in there and I feel like I need this, or all kinds of things. And so I have, with a list of what the people need and want from the space, I will then go to the space itself and introduce myself and tell them these people have asked me to talk with it. And this is what they need and want. And what do you need and want, right? What do you need and want? And I know I've said this in other shows where I've talked about space cooperating. Once you intuitively connect with a space, your head might explode, right? You'll be shocked and even embarrassed how much spaces know about the people in them and what's going on, from marital difficulties to sci-fi movie stuff like open portals, which I can guarantee most people in the so-called Western world do not understand. I even had a house tell me one time, yeah, I'm 100 years old. Can you believe it that they built me on top of this open portal? And I'm going, yes, I can. Believe it, because we just don't know about things like that in our society. So let me help you. So usually spaces are so stunned that people ask their opinion that they have to stop and think about, and how does space go like, they want my opinion? Like they're actually asking for my opinion? Oh, what is my opinion? Wait, well, I'd like this and I'd like that, and I absolutely would love this, but I don't like that at all. And, it goes on from there. And sometimes I've actually had to convince the space that it was okay to talk to me, because they're like, yeah, no one's ever paid any attention to me before. What's your angle? So they can be hilarious and really very, sad at times, because they haven't been listened to in ages. And one of the times that I really learned this was when I thought I was going out and buying a new property and selling my condo. And what I was really doing was hearing houses all over the city of Seattle calling for new owners because they were being sold, or trying to hang on to their current owners, or even a period where we went through an arson, a serial arsonist in Seattle, and they were all screaming about being burned down. And I was like, what the heck? Right. So know that if you're going to actually clear your space in a way that's really going to help it clear, you're going to have to ask it what it needs and wants. And you may be surprised. I mean, remember the story I told about the furnace? I mean, sure, the owner knew the furnace had burned up, and until we got down to the basement and I actually saw it, and realized, oh, this is what the deal is. I mean, you might not think about this person was, as a brilliant person, very highly intuitive. It just didn't occur to her to find out what the space needed and wanted, or to go through and find out what might be wrong in that space. And once the soul of that furnace was told, it's not your fault, you did your best, it's okay, you're forgiven, you can go, then the place cleared. So I was just talking on the street, walking my dog the other day, and running into people who were moving and talking about their space. And they said, put some sea salt in all the rooms. They were talking about, do you work with the paranormal investigators? And I'm like, yeah, no. Because they'll go in and they'll go like, oh, this place is haunted, and they'll try to get the ghost of that space to talk to them. And I'm like, yeah, no. If I went in there, I would find out what's going on, find out why they're stuck there, and then help them move to the afterlife. Rarely are the dead unwilling to move to the afterlife. And I'll talk about that in my next show this month, what's going on in the afterlife. But this is why I do space cooperating. So I'll tell the place what the people need and want. I'll find out what it needs and wants. When we get to the clearing itself, I'll sit down with the people in the space or virtually on Zoom these days, because I do clearings all over the world and can't go everywhere in person. And really, energy is everywhere, so you really don't need to be there. But that's where we negotiate. We tell them this is what the space needs and wants. How can we accommodate that? What can work and what can't work? Well, sometimes the people just can't stay and they have to sell, and the house has to understand that. And then we help it call a new family. But negotiating change is the important point. And once both sides get listened to, then you can help the energy clear. And believe me, that is a huge difference. So do that with your own space. Make a list of what you need and want. Ask what it needs and wants. Listen to the answer in the way your intuition works most strongly. And then work through and clear it. You can walk through and go like, I'd like this energy to clear here. You can dance, you can wave your arms, you can do whatever feels good to you, but invite the space to join in with you as you do that. And I promise you it will be fascinating and hilarious and deeply moving, and it will work. And after the break, I'm going to talk about the modalities that don't work and why they don't work. And then I'm going to tell you a story about how you can combine home and work spaces in one space, which is important in this world where we're still working from home in a lot of places. So hang on. We'll be back after the break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn, Fritz, and we're talking about clearing space. Okay, so sure, you want to clear your home, you want to clear your office space, you want everything to work really well, but you also want to clear the things in that space. So I remember one time clearing, working with my home. My home's name is Frank. Kind of laugh when I say, well, your name is Frank. Yeah, people tell me that's one of my problems is I'm too frank. And he's like, oh, come on. But Frank is my home, and he has his very strong opinions, which is good because, hello, Fallon lives here, and he has strong opinions. But when I stop and actually do a formal clearing and, check in with Frank about what he needs and wants, I also make sure that I'm working with everything in the space. So if I bring something new into the space, I help it clear. It sits by Fallon for a bit or put salt around it. But I remember buying some new chairs. Oh, this was over 10 years ago. And they were brand new, but they had really, really stuck energy. It took a while for that to clear. And it's also why I don't bring in antiques into my place as a rule. I prefer new things, although I was surprised the new chairs really needed a lot of help to let go of the manufacturing process and where they came from. But if you have old jewelry or old clothes or old pieces of furniture, I have an antique Chinese table that someone gave me. Remember to ask them what they need and want and to let go of their past so that they can, be present here for them in the future. And this is really very important because as we talked about everything being alive, think about that everything has a soul. And when we come into the bodies that we are in our current lifetime, we're all doing the same thing. We're all learning to love. We're all learning to love ourselves. We're all learning to be more love in the world. And our homes, as I said earlier, are created to nurture and protect us. They have feelings. They can be easily hurt and they can easily misunderstand. And setting up this connection between them, dialogue, if you will, if you hear them, is an important way of remembering that we're all together. We're all lined up here together in the world trying to do our best. And again, that if you look at it as a psychological or philosophical thing, everything is growing toward love. And souls that choose to be homes or businesses, those are huge jobs. I remember teaching a free class for a year on intuition every week in the beginning of the pandemic, which was my contribution to healing in as the pandemic got underway. The U.S. Capitol chimed in after the January 6th riot at the Capitol and asked for clearing, and I hadn't really thought about that before. So remember that everything has a soul and respect that soul, but also the personality that is there, because the personality, I've had homes that didn't want to let go of their people, and on an examination, I realized that was the home's first time of having a family. So it was a baby in its incarnation as this home. It was a new experience for it. So find out what's going on, ask what's going on, and you'll know more about it. And remember that emotions are important and emotions create change. So what we think and feel and our spaces think and feel all is part of that creating change. And that is why space cooperating really works. Now, what doesn't always work? Well, energy healing and shamanism don't always work. While energy healing is part of the process, if you're using the concepts in those modalities in the way they're generally taught, it's forcing change on a space. You're forcing it to change. It's like the old way of training a dog. Force it to change. Use a choke collar and discipline it if it acts up. That's not going to work. And you're going to force the energy to move, but you're not going to honor the space itself and what it needs and wants. And eventually, I can promise you, you're not going to feel comfortable anymore in that space, or you'll find yourself out on the street because it just isn't working anymore. So take that as fair warning. I've seen this happen to energy healers and shamanic practitioners that didn't understand that just because they could use energy didn't mean they couldn't force it. And so it meant that they could force it, because if you do, you'll wear it out. Just like the story of the dense energy I told you, I've had other places tell me they just got worn out by being forced to change all the time. We would be too, right? So that's one thing. Clutter clearing. Well, clutter clearing is a different thing entirely, and not everything is clutter as we would describe it. And I remember talking in an earlier show about cleaning out some kitchen cupboards after my dog died and finding out that all these deli lids were somehow there without the deli containers were trying to help me grieve. So if you have clutter, don't think about it as stuck energy. Think about it as, is this working in my space or not? And what does it need or want? You can weed a whole garden really quickly, literally by putting your hands over something and going, are you ready to stay or you're ready to go? And literally they'll leap out of the ground. The weeds, so-called weeds, will leap out of the ground. So clutter clearing is more a matter of where your emotions are and how you think about a thing, and not asking it what it needs and what it, and you may find that things really are ready to move on and you're holding on to them for emotional reasons. And that's a whole different ballgame. It is not space clearing. And then there's the modality of space clearing itself, and even feng shui. So I had to laugh when my nephews were visiting this last spring, and my one nephew goes, let's do feng shui this place. And I'm like, excuse me, young man? And so feng shui kind of got, changed from the original people who used it to connect with the planet itself. They had the idea and the understanding that we're part of the world and not in charge of it. We're not the apex predators we think we are, at least in terms of energy. And then it became proscribed ways of dealing with the space, and it doesn't make sense the way our homes are set up these days. Again, Western civilization just isn't set up for the kind of thing that feng shui wants. But if you take ways of dealing with the space and then say, hey, do you want blue in this space, or how do you feel with that? Then feng shui can be an introduction to the overall cooperation that you really need to do in terms of connecting with your space. So the other thing would be space clearing, as people teach it and use it and have since the 80s. And, all of these people who use these modalities are amazing and wonderful people, and they do great work in the world. All I'm saying is that, not only do I prefer my modality, but the beings that I talk and work with prefer it as well. And the reason is they're not being forced to do something. There's a collaboration and a cooperation there. And space clearing forces change, and it doesn't always find out that the burned out furnace in the basement is what the problem is and needs to be addressed and handled with gentleness and love and compassion. This is what I see in the world. If you don't like what I'm telling you, then ignore it. But I would invite you to try it in your space and see if it works. And now I want to talk to you about how you create a partnership with your space when you're combining home and work in the same space. Now, a lot of us have done this in the last few years. I've done it for most of my life by necessity. I've been handicapped for most of my life. And I literally would not survive going to an office and working for somebody else. My health would not handle that. So, the life I lead is the life I lead that I can lead based on my health issues, but also by choice in working as an ambassador to our mother, which we can all incorporate in our everyday lives. But I had a client who was a media personality here in Seattle, and she wanted to learn about space clearing, so to speak. And so I went to her space and I worked with it. And she had an office downtown Seattle, and then she also brought work home. She had a small one-bedroom apartment, all she needed, in an old building. It was really adorable, and the building was really cool. One of those old Seattle buildings that you just love because they have history, right? But that history can be part of getting stuck right? So, I cleared the overall space in the building, but as well as her space. But I want to focus on her space as we're running out of time here. She was also creative, liked doing her own art, and she needed her downtime at home. So here I am, and this is the story that made me laugh and say, well, my work is I'm a shrink for spaces. Because the competing energies of home business and creation we're competing energies in this space. And the home space was really cranky and feeling left out. And it was confused about the different things going on because she was resting, she was working, she was creating. It was like, oh, I don't even know what's going on. And it was extremely jealous of the workspace. And when it was talking with me, it was like, the space is the workspace is getting all the affection and attention by the owner and all the creativity, and it's all going into that space. And this business space was open and colorful and busy, and the home space was all contained and closed off, and it was mad and angry about that. And I'm like, wow, you can really see how off kilter the home space was. Because I said, the space said, well, she looks at the office and likes everything and even the mess, but then she comes home to me and she's all worn out. And then she's worn out because she's working at home too. And I said, yeah, of course she's worn out, because home is where we rest up and where it's safe to recuperate and relaxed and be comfy so that the outside things don't bother us so much. And the home paused and it went, oh, oops. Because sometimes we have to remind our spaces what their jobs are, and how they can cooperate together. So it was a negotiation between the business space and the home space and the creative space. And so here's what you can do with those spaces and what I suggested that the owner do with those spaces. And, define the areas that are home and work. Now, for me, I have a 2-bedroom condo, and 1 bedroom is my office space, and it's vibrant and alive and energetic and full of, put kind of dynamic, take it out into the world energy. And when I'm done at the end of the day, I leave to my space that is not that, is my home space. And my space is very clear. Like if I take work into the other room, I'm like, this is my work space here right now. And when I put it aside, then the home space comes in. Then that's a juggling game that you can do. But if you've got a desk at home that, you need to do a bunch of things, that you can put up a screen, you can create an office area that's just your office and screen it. You can even screen it out with your mind. Just say, okay, put a veil around it, a cloth around it, so a curtain, and that's your business space. And then remind the space that that's what it is. And when at the end of the day, when it's time to eat in that space, you go, okay, now this is home space. Try that. You'll find that it works, right? And keep checking in with your spaces. And remember that you can carve out spaces for work and rest and creativity within that one home space by, inviting the space to cooperate with you and showing that this is how you're clearing or closing off this space for work and this space for creativity. And it works. And you'll find that you're more comfortable in that space. So always use sea salt. Again, put it around in the different rooms. You just a tiny bit, and you'll feel when it's used up, you throw it away. Right? It will help you keep yourself clear. It will help you keep the space clear. So use lots of sea salt. In working with your spaces, remember that you're connecting as equals. Keep your sense of humor. Spaces are adorable and hilarious, and also just make you sad at times that we hadn't paid attention to them like we could have. And hold on to wonder, to that awe that makes you know that the world is just bigger than we think of. That we're so busy in our daily life that we don't pause to see how beautiful the world is. I adore where I live. I live by the ocean, and every day it's something different. Even a different cloud, or this morning, clouds above and fog below, and in the middle is light from the sun shining on the mountain with the snow. Find the joy and the beauty in the life around you, and that's helping the world around you clear as you're clearing yourself. And that will make you more competitive and more at ease in your work so that you can keep yourself healthy, involved, and contributing. Remember, we are all ambassadors to our planet. We are all involved in contributing to the welfare of our beloved mother. And in doing that, we contribute to our welfare and the welfare of everything and everyone around us. And that's how we make the world a better place and ourselves with it. So thank you for listening today. You can find me at robynfritz.com. That's ROBYNFRITZ.com. Check out what I offer. Check my books. Check out previous versions of this radio show. And support OMTimes. They are doing tremendous work in the world, and we are grateful for them. Take care, and I'll see you in a few weeks.